22 years ago today was September 11, 2001. We were brutally attacked by terrorists from the Middle East that bombed the World Trade Center. And many people like to think of it as September 11 because they think of the bombing. But I like to think of the good that came out of this. I like to think of the patriotism that was shown by the people in their support of the police officers. I like to think of the support for the people in New York. I like to think of the support for the fire department, and I like to think of the memorial that still stands in New York today. If you go to the site of the bombing, you can see the memorial, and it's something that brings a tear to the eye when you see it. And many people at that time were showing patriotism from both sides of the aisle. Everyone wanted to show their patriotism. Everyone gathered together. We were one country united, and that's why it's known as Patriots Day. And so something about this takes me to something else in thinking about the gain rather than our differences. And so there's a book written by Dan Sullivan that is called The Gap in the Gain. And this book, I've been with Dan in Toronto. I used to go up every quarter and go to some of his 10 time sessions. And him and Ben Hardy were up there in a lot of the sessions. And he liked to talk about thinking in terms of how far you've come rather than how far you are away from your goal. Because we can think of where we are versus where we've been, or we can think about where we are versus where we think we should be by now. And those people who are happy think about where they are versus where they've been, rather than comparing themselves to where they think they should be or comparing themselves to others. And so this is just a quick run through of, say, a simple goal. And over time, let's say we want to achieve a goal by in the December. We're going to go through different steps along the goal process to achieve that goal. And let's say we've reached step 4 and there's a total of 8 or 9 steps. We can either think, well, we're not there yet. I'm going to be upset at myself for not being there. Or you can think about, okay, well, look at how far I've come. I was way back here before. We've made a lot of progress. We could have done better, but yes, we made a lot of progress. Let's celebrate what we've been able to accomplish. And so the people who are happy, you find that the people who are grateful and the people who tend to be happy, and the people who are happy tend to achieve more. Those people who celebrate how far they've come do a whole lot better over time than those people who think about, well, I'm not where I wanted to be, so I'm going to beat myself up. I'm going to beat up everybody else, and I'm going to be angry about it. And so we want to think about how far we've come along and how much we've gained rather than thinking about where we could be. This brings me to a couple other things where we think about framing. And when we think about how things happen in the markets, we can think about someone who had a $2 million portfolio 6 months ago that's now down to $1.8 million. And that person, if they're thinking about that, if their portfolio topped out at $2 million and now it's down to $1.8 million, they may think, well, that's not so good, I don't like that. But if they, or you could say there's someone who has a $1.2 million portfolio 5 years ago that's now worth $1.8 million. That person may be a little bit more excited, and they're thinking about, oh, this is how far I've come, rather than, oh, I was here and now I'm down. And or you could think of someone who had an $800,000 portfolio 12 years ago that's now worth $1.8 million. That person is probably the most happy when they think about the gain, rather than, okay, well, we topped out here and now we're down. All too often people think about, oh, we topped out here, now we're down. Even though they know it's going to come back up, because it always does, they think about, okay, we're down from where we were, so I'm going to be upset, rather than thinking, okay, I'm up from where I was and I'll be happy about it. So we want to think about framing, we want to think about how much we've gained, rather than where we were versus where we are now, or where we are versus where we may have wanted to be at one point. There's a couple other things that I think are good for people to look at. If you look at your portfolio too much, there's a greater chance of your portfolio being down in any one day. So usually it's better to look at your portfolio maybe not quite as often. The more you look at your portfolio, the more likely you are to be disappointed. So why do you want to be disappointed? You may want to look at your portfolio less often. And it may lead to over trading. So if you're looking at your portfolio once a day, that's usually a recipe for disaster. If you look at it once a month, that's usually okay. If you look at it once every 3 months, you're usually going to be a lot more happy with where you are than if you're looking at something every day. So those are the things I want you guys to think about. Let's think about working together. Let's think about patriotism. Let's think about being one nation united together under God with liberty and justice for all.